Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our director's commentary of Dice of Men, episode 1. Let's pick up where we left off. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Of Dice and Men. Your night passes uneventfully. You wake up in the morning, one of the guards is cooking some basic, meager meals, and Kel Silverhorn is pacing back and forth, staring at the sky.
Okay.
Why is he staring at the sky? I don't know. That was a ridiculous thing to say. That was dumb of me. There's no reason for him to stare at the sky. I just meant to say he was impatient. You could kind of say there's griffins in the area, so he's maybe like impatient, like worried about griffins coming by. I don't know, that was just weird.
As of right now, it's too soon to tell, but we will let you know. We are going to investigate more today and hopefully come up with more of a firm answer for you regarding that matter.
I want to look into the way he said that. See if I can
Let's roll back and see exactly what I said.
Come up with more of a firm...
Because if it's not, then importantly, well, have you figured it out? Or at least, most importantly, is the mine in any future danger? Because if it's not, then, well, we can reopen it, and that's all that really matters.
Neal?
As of right now, it's too soon to tell, but we will let you know. We are going to investigate more today and hopefully come up with more of a firm answer for you regarding that matter.
I want to look into the way he said that.
Beautiful. That's... Mwah. How did someone say something? It's not just what they said, it's how they said it that that gives meaning to the words that they're giving. So Valdur, once again, fucking kicking ass.
See if I can detect anything.
Why don't you give me an insight check? He seems impatient, like he just wants to get the fuck out of here.
I kind of look at him then, and I'm sitting, eating a blood orange, which is my compromise with Toki.
Nice.
Because I'm a sensitive guy, too. And I'm kind of like... So there's a lot of these mines, right? So this one's shut down for a period of time. Is it going to just be restaffed and then it goes back to work immediately? There's nothing missing or anything like that?
If there's nothing missing, I see no reason why whoever's mine this is now will can't just restart it.
So the missed shipment, is that going to cost the prince something? Is like, how much does that cost?
It's still here in the mine. We'll only
late.
lose the... Yeah, it'll just be late.
And so all of the mines around here, there are many, right? How many are there total?
Ooh, I need to look that information up.
I should have had that on hand, but I was a fool.
Is each with like...
We're just gonna skip ahead.
And the prince... all of these mines work under the government, right? They all work under the prince. They all work for the same guy.
No.
They're digging into good details here.
Someone, and they pay a reasonable amount of taxes on up the food chain. I believe some of the mines are owned directly by the prince, and a few other families own a few of the other.
Who
Who owns
owned
this
this mine?
My uncle.
Right, okay.
But your uncle's dead.
Yes, he is unfortunately dead.
Then who
He was
inherits
here.
the mine?
So does that mean you own it now?
I would have to look into the right of succession. I'm not sure. He has no children, and his wife is dead.
I pull out my sword, declare...
All right, well, we'll get to what he's about to do in a moment. But this is good. Who gets the mine? Qui bono? Who benefits? Why? One of the major things in investigating a crime is who stands to benefit from this thing that happened. It's not just, I mean, if the motive is vengeance, then the killer just wants to get everything, kill all these people, and that's their benefit is the vengeance itself. But if this is not an issue of vengeance, iron mine is worth a lot of money. There's only 10 in the region. That stands to reason that this is a big transaction here. Whoever inherits this mine stands to gain quite a lot, which instantly makes them suspicious. And I'm glad that the party's now picking up on that and asking these questions. It took them a little while, but now they're here. Let's go back and see what Jeff does.
Player mystery solved, and I decapitate him. So then I look
Wait.
at the group and just say, "No, I'm kidding, Steve."
I don't think you understand the types of campaigns that have been going on. Okay, that's fully within the realm of possibility.
Not with me.
So
What was it here?
How
What
often-
was the last person to come to this mine? Did the
Establishing a timeline. Who is the last witness here? Great investigatory technique.
did the cook guy? Did they have shipments of food that come in? Who was the last person to visit this mine that actually saw it like up and running before everybody was killed?
Beautiful.
I have no idea.
Okay, would we be able to find inside? There was a ledger, I believe, that we found that showed. Yeah, would that ledger have information about who the last person to visit the mine was?
Yes, Kenny, the foreman, kept detailed notes on everything that happened here at the mine. The last, if you go through the ledger, the last person that visited was Lord Silverhorn himself. And there is no note of anyone visiting after him. He arrived.
So, what I missed at the time, but I'm seeing right now, is that perhaps what he was asking was who was the last person to visit that didn't die here? Because he specifically said, like, shipments of food. So perhaps I should have said Lord Silverhorn was the most recent arrival, but the last person that wasn't accounted for would have been... bleh. I didn't really catch that in the moment.
Lord Silverhorn arrived 10 days ago. T-minus 10.
and Lord Silverhorn was the owner. Is that correct?
Correct.
10 days ago, he visited. 9 days ago, the shipment was ready. And 8 days ago, they were killed.
Why was he here for 2 days?
I
He
have
was
no
there?
idea. He's my uncle. He's not me.
Well, does
Sure,
the
he had
ledger
a couple of...
provide any details about what he would have been doing here? What Lord Silverhorn was doing here?
Kenny noted only Lord Silverhorn here to introduce the new knight and oversee operations for a while.
This new knight, Keltherold. What do we know about her?
Good questions.
Oh, let's see. Says
Good questions.
Kel Silverhorn.
Now, one of the reasons why it might have been better not to have Kel Silverhorn come here is they have someone they can ask all these questions of. If he wasn't here, they could develop this list of questions and then head back to civilization to get these questions answered. But by having an NPC here who can answer these things, it doesn't incentivize them to go back as much, which is a problem, which is another reason why I shouldn't have had Kel Silverhorn come here with them to the mine. Another mistake on my part.
Much about her. I only know that she was newly knighted, perhaps in the last month or so. Again, members of my uncle's household would know more details about his personal life than I would. As I said, we didn't often see eye to eye.
Do we know where Keltherold's body was?
Yes. He was killed here. We found it here. He points to this spot in the... call it.
Wait, I'm sorry, was Keltherold he or she?
She. I'm sorry,
yeah.
I keep mixing.
I keep botching that.
Keltherold was killed here, and we brought her body inside. Or at least we found her body here.
So Keltherold, the new knight that was just brought here,
Whoops, sorry.
in an area separate from everybody else.
It's Katarina, okay?
Damn, that's the wrong button again.
I
doesn't
don't see
matter.
gender, so.
She does, though, and she asks that you respect it.
What?
I'm gonna... Is one of the guards in the room?
Oh, Jeffrey.
Yes.
I look at his hip where the sword is. What kind of sword is it?
The guards that you brought with you,
Yep.
they're carrying spears, not swords.
Son of a bitch.
Mm.
It was definitely
Okay.
a sword, as we saw, right?
Definitely sword.
What about this
What about
nephew?
this sword?
He's a knight. He uses a sword,
What kind of sword?
arming sword. It's the
Okay,
most common
okay.
type of sword around.
I have solved
this
it. I
one?
cut his head off. We're done. Roll credits.
What is this sword, Koibu?
That's an arming sword.
The party is getting some good clues here, although arming sword is the most common sword, so, you know.
Yes. So you say that you did not see eye to eye with your uncle. What was your qualms with him?
Excuse me?
See eye to eye with him. What?
It's a personal question to be asking a noble, someone who is like socially your superior, which is another one of those concepts that people who don't deal a lot with this sort of world might not innately pick up on, is this like social hierarchy where you can't just necessarily ask anybody any question. You ask like a powerful noble some really personal questions, he might slap you, he might have you thrown out on the street. If he's strong and powerful enough, he might just have you arrested because he's a fucking asshole and he's got power and you're being a dick, and it's an unequal world with lots of abuses, you know. It's one, those are the details I always struggle to bring into my party, is that like weird social layering dynamic where this nobility has all this power over the lower people, and the lower people can be punished for things socially or like logistically, like arrest or whatever, or beatings, for really any reason whatsoever or no reason whatsoever, because the nobility's not used to being talked back to or being asked these personal questions. You know, it's offensive. Those are details that are hard to integrate with players.
I heard you, madam, sir.
So, Neal.
Sir.
Yeah, just because. It's confusing for us too. Neal.
Sorry.
Having also watched The Wire, I'm going to employ a tactic here. I'm going to stand up. I hand Toki the blood orange.
I take it.
Okay, good. And I'm going to rip my sword out and say, "You, sir, have a beef with your uncle for ownership of this mine. With the people slaughtered, it comes to you. Tell me why you are not guilty of this crime." And I'm
Solid, semi-solid detective work here. We don't know for certain who the mine falls to, but we know the uncle has no wife and no children. So it would fall to maybe a brother or a sister, or the brother or sister's children, like, you know, line of succession. He's already got a handle on it. So this is some good, excuse me, detective work.
I'm trying to intimidate him.
Give me an intimidation check.
Wow, that is a certain way to go about this.
I rolled
huh?
a 1. Neal,
You rolled a 1.
I
He
rolled
looks
a
to
1.
his
No.
7 assembled men-at-arms.
I'm so glad he rolled a 1 here. I'm so glad, because first off, this knight, he ain't no chump. He's a retainer knight to the Prince of Cronwick. His level at a minimum is 5. Then he has, well, he brought 8 men with him. One of them is dead. So he has 6.5 men worth of like extra firepower around him as well. So like, this group of 3rd level people threatening this knight with his men at arms is sort of a joke, right? Like, what is he gonna do? Kill the knight? Fight the knight? Even if he's 100% right, even if the knight is totally the one who did it and he's got all the motivations down and everything, he kills the knight. What does he do about the extra guardsmen? They're innocent in all of this, but they're going to help the knight. So does that mean you have to then also kill the guardsmen? And if you kill the knight and the guardsmen and then you march back to town, you're like, yep, we solved it. We killed the knight. We killed all these guards that were with him. He's the one who did it. There we go. Case solved. Like, how is that going to play out for you? That, like, even if it's right, you took like this major decision to kill this heavily connected noble and knight, like, into your own hands. You didn't ask the prince about any of this stuff. There are a lot of serious social ramifications for intimidating or killing or butchering any of these people. So I'm really, really glad Jeff rolled a 1 here so that the knight can walk away and escape and the party doesn't accidentally, because if he'd made his intimidation check, it's not like the knight would have been like, oh no, you're right, I did it all. If he had done it, it would have been probably more of like, well, if he had done it and the party had accused him of it and had been successfully intimidating, he probably would have thought, this is my only time to escape. I'm going to butcher these people here on the spot and then I won't, like, that'll be it. So this failed intimidation check has probably saved the life of at least 2 party members here, if not all of them. This easily could have been a TPK. Thank God for the natural 1.
Arms and looks to his own weapon, puts his hand on it, and doesn't draw it all the way, but brings it like a few inches out of its sheath and goes, Sir, I'm right, you're not a knight. Look here, fellow, I could cut you down where you stand. My men will rip you to shreds. I recommend you put that weapon away if you are going to try and interrogate me. Furthermore, I am a knight and beyond reproach, and I will not stand for this nonsense. He gives a whistle, makes a motion, and starts walking out with the rest of his guards.
Excuse me,
I
sir.
sheathe my sword.
Sir.
He ignores you and keeps walking. You have to follow him if you want.
Wait, what?
He's leaving. You just accused him of murdering his uncle.
I want to run up to him and try to stop him, and say, sir, excuse me, our muscle there, he often thinks with his, sword instead of his brain.
Okay. No, same thing.
I very much apologize for his actions. I very much apologize for his actions, and I do not condone his actions back there. I'm not accusing you of anything. I just have some questions to ask you. If you'll please answer them so that we can get to the bottom of
So
this
really
issue.
at this point, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get the knight and his guards to leave, because I want the party to start thinking about asking other questions and getting more information that you could get back in the city. So I'm using this as an opportunity to get the knight to leave so that I can isolate the party here by themselves, so that if they need more information, they have to go back to the capital, or I can throw some more combat encounters at them to, you know, keep things moving, change the pacing around, get some interesting stuff happening. I'm making up for my mistake by having the knight be here in the beginning.
I don't know if we're gonna
His
find
guards are fucking off. They're
any
heading
more
home.
answers here. Maybe we should go and talk.
Can I try to diplomacy? Can I persuade him to stay?
So
Can
here's
I
the
roll
thing.
some garbage?
Backstory-wise, if you kiss his feet up to his knees, he'll stop.
You can try whatever you want, but he's booking it right now. He's been deeply offended, and he like socially outranks you guys by a lot. So he's fucking off.
Want to try to run for him again and try to stop him and use my persuasion skill. Persuade him to stay.
Sure. Give me your best persuasion role play and then roll it afterwards. Or vice versa, whichever way you think is going to work better.
Steven, you got the best fucking chat. This guy's probably too stupid to figure it out. Guy in the chat's figured it out, you guys. Damn it. Ugh.
What happened?
Yeah, chat's super toxic.
I am lonely too.
Oh.
God.
Silverhorn, please. I beg you to stay. I deeply apologize for my for my employee's actions, and I do not condone anything that he has done. I know you care deeply about your uncle, despite the problems you may have had, and I want.
Is this your company? He interrupts you. Is this your company, your business? Then if you would like to apologize for his actions, you will fire him immediately.
Do it. Safe.
Deal.
This is a nice way to solve the problem here. It's calm down the angry knight, fire Valdur. I'm sure they'll find a way to bring him back into the party a little bit later. But this is a nice way to socially appease the knight.
He crosses his arms and waits to watch you fire him.
Okay, I want to walk over to him.
The knight follows with you to hear in person the words that will be
name.
shared.
How do you keep forgetting my name?
Valdor. Valdor, a word?
With you, it's hardly ever a word, but sure.
I regret to inform you.
Perhaps I kind of run up in here between the two. Perhaps it's good if all of us allow our heads to cool, and we revisit this issue in a few days. We can allow these men to return to the capital. We'll continue our investigation here. And before we make any hasty decisions that we might regret, we can chat with each other again at a later date.
Fine.
The knight leaves,
Okay.
and he takes his men with him.
I was gonna fire you and then rehire you. Okay.
I don't think we want to start that type of conflict. If he sees him walking around with us, he...
Yeah, good idea. It would temporarily appease the night, but then he'd see them walking around later, and it would be complicated.
All right, it was quite the spectacle. It was pretty funny that you drew your sword and then threatened him in front of his 8 guards. Thinking you stood a chance. However,
7 guards. One died to a mountain lion that I basically eviscerated into red mist. I'm not too worried about the guards.
Okay. Well.
No, you're right. It was a bold move, but we were not getting too far into this. I have seen enough evidence to believe that he did murder his uncle to own this mine.
Well, while I agree with you, I think that accusing him outright like that is not the way to get a confession, an answer, or anything else out of him. So, I request that in the future you are less bold with your actions, as amusing as it was.
Take your request up with human resources, which I believe is Toki.
I'm human resources.
Well,
maybe we should...
Your management.
Maybe we should find the mistress to try and ask her some questions. It doesn't seem like we're going to get much farther here at this mine.
I agree.
I also agree.
Yep, you can only get so far into a mine. You reach the end of it.
Beautifully stated.
Thank you. Could have been a poet. Let us find this mistress.
All right. You guys can pack up your shit and head out. These guys have a decent head start on you. They're not too far down the path. Are you going to try and catch up with them or give some space between you and them? Clearly not welcome, but you can do whatever you want.
How long is the travel?
So this is where I'm trying to separate the party from the knight and his men. I want the party to be separated so we can do this kobold encounter that we run into in a little bit, that I wanted to do at the beginning, that we should have done at the beginning to change up the pacing of it a little bit. And thankfully, the party decides not to try and catch up to the knight and his men, because that would have been more social awkwardness and everything. This is great.
I would like everybody in the party to make me a perception roll.
Okie dokie.
So this perception roll is to see if they can spot the ambush. And I'm looking for a really good roll. I'm looking for like a 20 or something here, because these kobolds are lying in wait, lying in ambush for the party.
Firing up my, loading up my perception.
Okay.
It's great.
I can't hear that sound anymore.
Nice roll, Steven.
Alrighty. You do pretty well on your perception, but not good enough, because you walk right into a well-placed ambush.
Kobolds are small, weak, cowardly creatures. In Arcadia, they are canine-based. They're more dog-like. In rules as written, 5th edition and other stuff, they're like lizard-like creatures. But here we use dog-like kobolds, because it just makes more sense to me.
So we're going to go party gets a turn, monsters get a turn, and we'll just rotate back.
This is something I've been wanting to do more, is group initiative. I feel like group initiative makes combat better, because you say the party goes, and then everyone looks at the table, figures out what they do, and then they all do it right away. But when you have these long combats with lots of creatures and everyone's got their own initiative turn, then you go through the monsters, you get to one person, that person like alt tabs back from whatever, or control tabs back from whatever other thing they were doing, because this is a bunch of ADD nerds who are all always distracted with something else going on. No one's fully paying attention to the game 100%, So when everyone goes at once, I am hoping it'll speed up combat, because then they're all paying attention for a short time and figure it out. And then I decide what the monsters do, and all the monsters go together. And there's not this, okay, your turn, where's that monster? Okay, it's this monster over here. Who does that? Where's that monster? He's over here, do that. So I'm going to try to move to a group initiative system that I think will work better. Now, I probably will do less, how do we say, I probably won't do group initiative for really big, important battles, maybe, or battles with like lots of really interesting characters, or lots of like spell casting. I don't know how exactly we're gonna work that, but I'll probably do some other form, like maybe the regular form of initiative. But I did want to test out this group initiative here, and I also want to show the kobolds are weak, cowardly. They attack in droves, and then they're easily driven off and destroyed. Or, maybe not destroyed, but driven off somewhere else.
No, you said it. Words are binding.
Words are
And I did mess up and mention the entangle, and I rolled the entangle in chat, and I could easily have like blown off Jeff and been like, no, people, you guys make your mistakes all the time, it's fine. But I why not? They could use the extra little bit of help that the other kobolds are entangled, and sometimes your players call you on shit, even if it's not important shit, and you should roll with it just not to be an obstinate asshole.
17.
I'm sorry, strength saving throws, not dexterity saving throws. You can keep the roll and adjust the thingies, and that's fine.
Oh yeah, I got a 1. Let's go, baby.
Wait, wouldn't you be using like your dexterity to avoid the roots? Or is this actually called in the spell? Oh, it's called in the spell.
It's called a creature in the area.
God damn it.
That's why I thought it would be dex, but then I read the spell.
Oh, I rolled so lucky. Holy shit. Okay.
12. So you got to beat a 12, which everybody except for Caterino beats.
Yeehaw.
So everyone but Caterino is fine. Caterino is going to be entangled.
So these kobold shamans,
two of them need
they're
to make
custom-built
saving throws,
creatures.
Otherwise, they're stuck early. And strength saving throws are not great for kobolds because they.
I don't think there's much interesting to talk about in this combat, so we're just gonna skip it because the battle just happens, right? I mean, at some point we talk about the kobolds breaking morale and fleeing, and that's useful because, as I said before, I want to introduce a morale system here. But other than reintroducing and re-mentioning the morale of the enemies and mentioning I'm going to make a morale check for them, which you're going to hear a lot until the players start being like, well, I'm going to try and intimidate them and force a morale check. That's when I'll probably stop toning it down. I'll start toning down the mentioning of it, but keep doing the actual mechanics behind the board. I forgot what I was trying to say. But the point is morale is important, and I want to introduce it here, and I want them to get familiar with it, and I want them to be considering the morale of their enemies during combat.
Encased in this bark-like appearance. It's kind of creepy, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
Also known as Daft's Blessing, I believe, because it starts at your toes and goes all the way up.
Oh yeah,
Daft.
sure. It's like the consistency of Groot.
What?
Yeah.
Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh,
talking tree. Yeah.
Right. All right, so we're gonna just skip ahead through the rest of the combat here. The kobolds get chased off. Nevitz chases the shaman down unnecessarily and kills him, but whatever.
Let's kill
And then our party
dog.
arrives back in Cronwick.
Of the fireplace, and when Lady Sandra walks in, you will realize that is not Lady Sandra in the picture with him. It's
Ooh, we're gonna back up just a little bit here.
all right. You look around the room.
You back up a little bit more.
Ledgers, pieces of paper laying around that might.
Agency.
Back up a little bit more.
At this time, but if you could,
Ooh, almost there.
Lord Silverhorn's estate, and you will find there his mistress, Lady Sandra. She is inconsolable with grief, says the doorman when you.
Important detail. His mistress is deeply grieving. That probably means she didn't have motive to kill him if she is so upset over it, or she's faking her upsetness in order to throw suspicion off of her.
Approach the estate. I'm sorry, Lady Sandra is inconsolable with grief and not accepting visitors at this time, but if you can leave your name and address, I'll have her get back to you right away. What is this all about?
It's the old-fashioned version of the telephone message. If you leave your name and number, I'll get back to you.
We are the various operations agency visiting. We are the detective agency.
The Chancellor Theravin himself hired to investigate the death of this mistress's lady.
Chancellor is a her, but we don't bother correcting because we don't want to interrupt the flow.
Well, then please, come on inside. I'm sure she would like to speak to you.
And this is interesting. The mistress has, how do we say it? She's inconsolable with grief, But the doorman is like, oh, your detective's looking into her husband's death. I definitely she will want to talk to you. So that gives us a little bit more clues here. Is she faking her grief? Well, if she's faking her grief, she probably wouldn't want to talk to the detectives. Then again, maybe the doorman doesn't know she's faking her grief. So it adds a little bit more like, clearly the doorman's not also in on it. Otherwise, he probably would try and get the detectives to hide. So doorman's probably innocent.
And he
not guaranteed,
away,
but probably.
Brings you into a nice parlor with some refreshing drinks, and we'll go fetch the mistress. Is there anything you want to do in the estate while you're alone in the parlor?
This is the thing I ask often. Players go to a place and wait for an event, and I'm like, okay, there's a little bit of downtime while you're here, but before the event happens, do you want to do anything? And almost without exception, like very rarely will anyone ever say, oh sure, I want to do X, Y, and Z, and what they do is important. The reason I'm always asking, do you want to do anything before this thing happens, is in the past I have had problems with players. Like, you get into a situation and you say something and the players are like, oh, well, obviously before all of this happened, I would have done X, Y, and Z. And so I started introducing this, is there anything you want to do before the person comes into the room, as a way of preventing that sort of like, obviously I would have done X, Y, and Z, because now I'm specifically calling for it, you know? And there tends to be a lot of that with player characters, as a, obviously I would have done this, obviously I would have done that, obviously it would have been this way. It only makes sense that I would have gone through the back door instead of the front door. But as a DM, players will often say, I go here. They don't say, I walk here, I run here, I skip here, I dash here, I try and sneak over there, I'm going to take back alley streets to that location. They just say, I go there. And as a DM, it's your job to interpret what that means in game. And I try to take the position of, if you say you do something, I will interpret it in the most simplistic, obvious way that makes sense to me. So if you say, I go to the bar, I'm going to expect that you just walk across the street, or, you know, walk down the street and walk in the door. And if you were going to say like, oh, well, obviously I was going to sneak in the back of the bar because I know the barman is looking for me, so I'm not going to like walk him through the front door. This is where we run into problems. So I try these days to ask how people do things, or give them an opportunity to explain it. And then if they don't explain it, I'll just take whatever interpretation. If you want, like, there are very few things that you can do to get better at D&D, because most of it's so subjective. Like, there's no such thing as like better or worse, but one of the few things that you can do that is like better as a player is to describe the way that you do things. You know, I kick down the door and bust in. In that situation, I might cause monsters or whoever's on the inside of that door to react with surprise. Maybe we make a morale check and flee. Or like, you know, you sneakily open the door, listen carefully, and slowly open it while listening to see if there's anyone in the room before you slip in your mirror on the side to like look around the edge of the door, versus just opening the door. Do you open the door and step in? You say, I go to the bar. Does that mean you walk into the bar and walk up to the bar and sit down at the bar? Does that mean you get to the outside of the bar and wait outside the door? Does that mean you like open it and say, hey everybody, here I am, keeping my usual, right? How are things done? So if you want to be a better D&D player or a better GM, you describe your actions in as much detail as is important to you. And if you don't put in any detail, you let the GM roll with whatever detail they want to imply, unless it's clearly ridiculous. You know, you wouldn't say, I go to the bar, and the DM's like, great, you strip off your clothes, put a coconut on your head, and walk to the bar, because that doesn't make any sense. But if the GM says, you know, you jog to the bar, you walk quickly to the bar, you walk to the bar, but you get distracted by a flower girl on the way, and then you get distracted by the guy that's sweeping off the desk, or not the desk, the patio, and he's talking to you about the way that things used to be when they had onions on their belts. You know, description, detail is good. And that's why I ask, is there anything you want to do here? Is I'm trying to bait out a silence, really, or any interesting actions the players might have.
Are there any open ledgers, pieces of paper laying around that might have assassination orders? Something.
Give me an investigation check to find out.
God damn it.
You look around the place, you find nothing of interest. No obvious clues about what happened here.
I would like to look around too, or can we only just?
So, what I did here, we only have a few minutes before the mistress comes in, so we have them roll investigation checks, and that's the right way to do it. When you're constrained by time, you should roll a check. When you're not constrained by time, you should be able to take 20 on the die roll, at least for investigations like this.
Start opening some cupboards here, and you find all these nice bottles of wine stashed away in this little section over here. Firewood is properly chopped and placed, ready to be used. There's this nice big tapestry of Lord Silverhorn with his arm around a woman above the fireplace. And when Lady Sandra walks in, you will realize that is not Lady Sandra in the picture with him. It's probably his late wife.
What does that tell us? He's got a big-ass picture of his late wife over the fireplace in the place that he lives with his mistress. Well, that tells us that either family's important or he deeply loved his old wife. It tells us something, but it also tells us that Lady Sandra is living in a house with a man that she's supposedly in love with, and in the guest parlor is a picture of her husband with his former wife, and that can't be an easy living situation for her to be in. I don't know if that's necessarily any like hard evidence that she's part of this murder or not, but it probably does speak to the state of the marriage, the state of the relationship. There's a reason I put that in there, is to show that there's some sort of like the noble still has like the proper favored relationship with the late wife, but even though he keeps the mistress around, and the mistress isn't married, so she's not going to inherit anything. So maybe there's some jealousy going on here. Maybe there's some sort of envy going on here. Maybe there's some bad blood after all. Like, she's been living with this guy, shacked up with him for ages, and he didn't marry her. He didn't give her any money. Well, maybe he gave her money. Who knows? But she's not inheriting anything. And he's taunting her with like his former lover in a big tapestry in their parlor. It gives information about the relationship, which is why I bother to mention it. It's not just a dressing detail, although you don't have to look any closer, and you can take it as a dressing detail. But there's nothing incriminating lying about.
Okay.
Here you are. Lady Sandra comes in. She's dressed all in black in mourning. She looks bereaved.
Dressed in black, dressed for mourning, looking bereaved, playing the part of the upset widow, even though she's not the widow, but the former lover, the lover of the dead man.
She's got some sniffles, but she comes in and says, I hear you've been appointed to look into my late husband's death.
Late husband's death?
Yes, we have. I'm so sorry for your loss.
Is that a slip of the GM? Or does she think of him as her husband? Or is she trying to convince these people that it's her husband? Is it deception and she's trying to convince them that they were married? Is it just that she liked him so much she always considered him a husband, even though it was never like legally that way, and she's really deeply actually in love with him? Or is the DM an idiot and just said a husband instead of nothing? We try to take the assumption that the GM is not an idiot, although sometimes GMs make mistakes.
Thank you.
We were wondering if we could ask a few questions about your late husband to see if we could ascertain what happened to him down at the mine shaft.
Of course. She pokes her head out the door and calls in for a servant to light the fire, because it's getting late in the day and it's getting a little chilly. So he sets to work setting.
I'm mentioning it's late and it's chilly because it took all day to get back here, and I want to remind them of the time of day. Another important factor in D&D that often gets overlooked is time of day. So it's getting late, it's getting dark, it's getting chilly. Let's light the fire. Let's remind them the day is coming towards an end and all the things that come with it.
Lighting a fire while you ask questions. Well, how can I help you?
Well, when was the last time you had contact with your husband? What did he tell you he was going to do?
Listen carefully and you can hear the track background that we're using. It's called Antiquated Study, something like that.
Not husband, I'm sorry. I always thought, to me, he was always my husband, but I know we were never legally married. He couldn't.
Clearly it wasn't a slip of the GM. It was just the GM leaving some clues, and she keeps slipping up on that factor. What does that mean? And the track name is Antiquarian Study. It's used in civilized areas because you can hear that ticking clock going back and forth, and it's very sort of like a studious, what do you call it? There's a bit of tension to it and a little bit of unease in it. There's definitely like a, what's the word for it? It's a track that doesn't put you at ease. It's a track that sort of like doesn't quite put you on the edge of your seat, but it's a little bit more tense. It's hard to hear, but maybe if you listen carefully, you can hear it.
Never marry a commoner, but we could be together in all but legal ways. What was the question again? I've already forgot.
Did he tell you if there was anything particular about this trip that he was going on? Any peculiar things or circumstances or people he was planning to meet, maybe?
Great questions.
That he might... You see, he appointed this new knight, Keltherald. She's a young thing and sort of pretty, and I was a little worried that this trip to the mines was a ruse to go off and be with her.
Now, she's basically saying, I suspected my husband of infidelity, and then my husband died. If she suspects him of infidelity, then that is motive for murder here. But she's telling the investigators she suspects infidelity, which she's so transparent about it, does sort of hint that maybe she didn't do it. Like, if she actually killed him for infidelity, she probably wouldn't have said, oh, I suspected that he was cheating on me, and yada yada, right? So that's more evidence to sort of paint her as innocent or super clever.
Sandra is 40 years old, 5'6", 126 pounds, human, 15 on the attractiveness. So that's the only thing that came to my mind, but then I heard that they were all killed. But he had said that he wanted to go to the mines to make sure that since she was so new, she was new to being a knight, new to this sort of responsibility, that she was on top of her duties, and I suppose that's what he was actually doing.
Is
I
that
shouldn't have
normal
doubted him.
for him to go and investigate the mines to check in on a new soldier? I imagine that new fighters or
These are great questions. Is this normal behavior?
knights are being appointed to these posts all the time, no?
He's mistaken there. These people aren't being appointed all the time, but it's a good, I don't know if he's mistaken or if he knows that it's probably not going to be this way, but he's giving himself a reason to be asking, is this frequent, to get more information out of here. We're seeing some really good investigation coming out of Nevitz right now.
Rarely. It's been half a decade or so since the last one was appointed.
And did he go with that one? Is it normal for him to check out the mines? Like, how often would you say he goes down there?
Rarely.
Okay.
What do you know about the Keltherald person? Do you know anything more about her? Do you know anything more about Keltherald person?
She's from a minor family of note, the Therald family, of course.
A minor family of note? Heh, because they're minors? That's just a coincidence.
Own some property? Some house.
They're not actually like pick and axe miners. They're like of little note miners.
Really a family of note. I think she was their greatest prospect in the generations going forward. Only child, I think. 20.
Now that bit right there is sort of interesting also, that this woman is the best prospect for her family. That means that there's a lot of hopes and aspirations being pinned on this woman, this Keltherin, I've already forgotten her name. Maybe the murder wasn't about the mine and it wasn't about the Lord Silverhorn. Maybe it's about this woman. Maybe it's about the knight that shows up. She just gets knighted. She goes out to her first mission to take care of these mines with all this responsibility, with this really important family who's very politically connected, who owns an iron mine, which is crazy expensive, who one of the other members of this family are part of like the small council of people that advise the Prince of Cronwick. This is a good connection for a minor family. Does that minor family, would someone have killed all these people just to, there could be something there is all I'm saying.
23 years old, but she was a squire to, I don't remember who, for a few years before she was appointed a knight last month.
Who else besides you would have known that
did
your
anyone
husband
else-
was going down to the mines?
Great question.
Well, our household staff, of course, and let's see, a couple of people invited us for dinner, and I had to tell them that he was out and about.
I didn't give any names because I didn't want to bother coming up with names. Not naming NPCs is sort of like the soft ball way of saying this isn't important, don't bother following up on it. Although in a murder investigation, you should still follow up on those things. The appropriate response would be like, oh, what families? Can we get their names? And then check up on those families. That would be the right way to do it. D&D is a little bit weird, so, I'm... How do you say? Normally, not naming NPCs is a clue that it doesn't matter. In a murder investigation, missing names might be super, super clutch, which sort of puts the D&D typical mechanics at odd with this style of gameplay. Makes it a little bit harder to run your games, but whatever.
I think that this has something to do specifically with my husband and not the mine.
We're just investigating all possibilities.
Yeah,
Great
we're trying
dodge
to-
by
What about,
Nevitz. Love it.
What about your husband's nephew?
Good questioning.
There's a few. I do believe Drake.
So right there, what about your husband's, lover, whatever's, nephew? And then she says he has a few. Now, that means that if he doesn't have any other brothers or sisters or parents, that one of these nephews would probably be inheriting things. We still don't know if Drake had any, not Drake, Lord Silverhorn had any other heirs, who his stuff would go to next. I don't think the party asks it of this woman, although she would definitely know. But it does put a few other people on the suspect list. There's a few nephews. Which one of these nephews, if any, stand to inherit? We don't know.
Came by the day after he left, asking to see my husband, my love.
All right, at this point, that is the DM messing up. That is the DM forgetting to use a word other than husband. That was a mistake. But I corrected it, and no one knows any better, except for you guys. Keep it to yourselves.
Do you know did he appear angry? What was he like? Do you know what he came for?
Oh my, it's a delicate matter, really.
Heard a little bit that they did not get along, but I do not know the extent of it. Could you give me a briefing on that?
Is it important?
This is again where we see that like prying into Noble's life is a little bit difficult. They feel uncomfortable about it. And this is an area where they should be pushing it, and they do. So good for them.
It could be.
Good answer. It might be important.
I wouldn't want to spread rumors about anyone, so please keep this information close to your chest.
Of course.
Drake's wife is a woman with fine taste, let's call it. And Drake is not a particularly wealthy man. His pay as being a retainer knight does not really cover her expenses. He's come by a few times asking to borrow money.
She's saying that he's got a wife with expensive taste and he can't keep up with her.
Coming by a few days back,
But she's saying it nicely.
ask for money again. Although he never got to it. I told him.
Or at least that's what she thinks. At least she thinks he's got a wife with expensive tastes.
He left at that.
Interesting. And does
And I don't know if there's anything inherently suspicious. Drake shows up to his uncle's estate, goes to talk to his uncle, probably to borrow money like he's done in the past. She says he's not here, and then Drake leaves. That seems like a pretty reasonable interaction. I don't think there's too many clues in there. It's not like Drake bust into the house and then robbed the place and took money for himself. That would clearly, sort of put him in the... Well, that wouldn't... It might put him in the clear more. But he just backs away. But it does let us know that Drake knew that that Lord Silverhorn was not around. And let's rewind just a moment and check a couple of details.
And although he never got to it, I told him Lord Silverhorn was gone, out to check his mine, and he left it.
So clearly, Drake Silverhorn knows that Lord Silverhorn is at the mine. How many days ago? Sometime after Lord Silverhorn left to the mine, Drake Silverhorn knows that he's there. That is an important information. We talk about means, motive, and opportunity. This doesn't solve any of these, because opportunity would mean he'd have to be in the same area. But this is at least one piece of evidence to give, to incriminate Drake, is that he knows that Lord Silverhorn would have been at that mine. And not many people knew that information, it seemed. Now, certainly anybody on the gate of the town would have been able to see Lord Silverhorn leave, and additionally the household staff would know, and the family that wanted them for dinner would know. So there's a short list of people who could know, and if we wanted to narrow down suspects, we'd figure out everybody who knew that he would have been at that mine, and then look at them for means, motive, and opportunity. Did anyone that knew he was at the mine, are they unable to account for themselves in the period of time while he's at the mine? Maybe Drake Silverhorn learns that his uncle's there and then like goes and borrows money from someone else and is around town the whole time and can't do it. Or maybe Drake Silverhorn goes, finds out his uncle's at the mine and vanishes. Maybe he does go to meet his uncle at the mine to borrow money and has a conversation, comes back home, later he gets killed, and that's why he like ventures out to figure out what's going on. There's a lot at play here. We don't know anything for certain, but Drake knowing that the uncle's at the mine is a big, it's part of the clues here. We're slowly working our way through all possible clues. At that.
Interesting. And does Drake have any kind of a little bit of power? Yes. Wouldn't you say?
What do you mean, power?
He has his own servants, his own knights and fighters.
He has a small household staff. A very small household staff. I think just a cook and a squire and a maid, maybe a gardener.
But any guards? He has some guards, yes. He has some people around him.
She shakes her head. He has a spear of soldiers that are assigned to him, but they are the Prince of Cronwick's men. He's an officer. So he has men under his command, but they're not his men, if that makes sense.
And that is another important detail right there. They're not Drake's men. They're not loyal to Drake. He's their commander, but they're loyal to the prince. So if this job had multiple people, then it's probably not the guards under Drake's command that would be the ones involved.
Thank you. Have any questions for her?
I think that's probably enough for now. Maybe we'll return later if we have more questions for you.
Why do you keep asking about Kel Drake? You don't think he would do this?
Can't discuss an ongoing investigation, ma'am.
Good answer. Good answer.
Of course, I understand.
I feel like I'm on The Price is Right. Good answer. Family Feud.
If you have any
good
other
answer.
questions,
Good answer.
Do come by. And if I think of anything, I'll send a messenger to your estate. Your place of business.
She doesn't know what to call it.
Stumbles over the words for such low-class people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Our business, yes. Okay, well, thank you so much for answering our questions, and sorry again for your loss.
She bids you adieu.
Where are we staying, by the way?
In your house?
At our place of business.
We're back in the town.
Mm-hmm,
I kind of want to try to seduce the lady, but I don't know.
Try it.
I don't know.
Hell, you put anything in front of the player characters and they're going to try and seduce it eventually.
Insight check into her.
Do it.
Okay.
First, Katerina.
Okay, insight. Going 21, baby. Let's
Great
fucking go.
inside check.
All right. So the first thing you
As noted.
realize about
And one of the things I should probably get them to do is make more checks on NPCs to like figure out little personal details about them. So I'm going to give her a little info dump on Lady Sandra.
her is that she is not highborn. This title, Lady Sandra, is definitely sort of like an honorific because she's with this lord guy. She definitely has that like born a commoner, but somehow got involved with someone above her status and has been trying to hide it with, like, you know, a noble accent, but you can tell right away that she's, like, low-born initially, which
Right.
explains why they were never married. Second thing you can tell right away, damn, is she fine, right?
Oh.
Yeah. Third thing is that she is truly and deeply, God, that hurts my brain every time I do that, heartbroken over the situation. She really is into him and is truly upset. I don't know if there's a way in there right now.
Well,
She's on the market for a
Now,
rebound.
write that there. We're talking about, like, she's truly upset. There might not be a way in there. That information is not just about whether Caterino can seduce Lady Sandra. She is truly heartbroken over this, then she probably didn't do it, right? Unless she was mad or insane. But if she was mad or insane and then was heartbroken over it afterwards, then it's just really it gets fuzzy, right? You get into some weird realm. But if, you know, things are normal and she's heartbroken over this, then she probably didn't kill him, right? Probably.
Perhaps.
Maybe I should slide in there. But maybe
Jesus.
Daff, I think it's
Later,
best to keep our
okay?
mind focused on the task ahead of us.
Oh, let her.
Tell me what
And
to
let
do.
him.
don't tell me what to do, okay?
He's young.
I'm
Lily Peachy
probably
waking
older
up a
than
little
you,
bit?
but she's super hot.
Who's older, Neal?
I don't know. How old are you?
Don't.
I don't know.
All right, we devolve into ages for a little while. We're gonna skip ahead.
Only suspect that is our most reliable suspect, and I think that's where we should focus.
I agree, but he's just going to deny it.
There's a
So
music
how do you get
change.
evidence.
We've stopped the antiquarian study and we've moved on to Dark Angel, which is much more of like a. Let's take a look at how we list it. Dark Angel. It is more. It's a more suspenseful thing. We list it as suspense hard because there's like suspense soft, suspense medium, suspense hard, and then it gives that like edgy, epic, too cool for school sort of feeling. And I'm gonna just play the track while I have the thingy paused. We're gonna just listen to a quick snippet of Dark Angel so you can see why I might have played it here. Skip ahead to the middle bit. It's very. I think it's named after Angel, the TV show, the spin-off of Buffy. I'm not entirely sure. I mean, the quote on the tabletop audio page is a dark homage to the 90s. A great backdrop for brooding drama or full-bore action. And it's definitely sort of like Angel from Buffy sounding, which is really good for sort of investigatory things, any situation where you need to be like, all right, what's happening now? We're like in the action that's not full-fledged action. This is like the pre-action soundtrack. You know, like the battle is about to become. You're confronting someone and the swords haven't been drawn, but we're here and we're ready. So this is what we're doing, playing, while the party is sitting down and discussing all of their clues and getting everything ready.
To prove it. Because Drake is he's in a powerful position. He's a retainer knight to the Prince of Cronwick. You can't just accuse him without evidence, and you can't just kill him. He's too well connected. You'll get yourself in no end of trouble. You got to prove it first.
I think I might have an idea to see if we could
What
get
is-
Drake to incriminate himself.
What is your
Yeah?
idea?
What is-
Soundtrack is perfect for this idea.
What if it were possible that we could construct a fake identity of a minor that survived the incident? We give a convincing enough story for a reason he would have gotten out. We claim to bring him back from the mine, and we put him up in a pretty public area, and we see if somebody hired by Drake shows up to kill him.
I love this idea. That's brilliant.
I agree.
It's solid. The party has some evidence. They need a little bit more. They construct an experiment to gather the evidence that they need. there are still a few details to be ironed out about this. Even at the end of the episode, there's still a few details to be ironed out. But it's good. They're finally making some progress. They've got ideas. They've got enough to act on. And they're developing a plan. I am so in love.
You might be the new leader with that idea.
Fuck. Listen,
I'm just the investigator. I could never do what Def does. And I mean that in every way possible.
Widowed women?
I hired him
Daft
for
can't do that.
outdoor, but I didn't hire you. It's pretty easy to find a new muscle, all right? So, quit your yapping.
And what if they actually harm or maybe even kill the decoy?
Well, the decoy,
that's
of
my
course,
job.
would be one of us.
And I think that is disguised self. Now you guys would have to.
We're actually going to pause here because I don't think there's anything else that I want to give some director's commentary on. Actually, we're just going to let it play and I'll just keep the volume down low. So at this point, the party's got some clues. They've got one prime suspect, maybe Drake, maybe the nephew. And as Nevitz just said here, they're not in any rush, right? You can take the time to do this properly. They've got one suspect. They haven't developed any others, but that's okay. It's the first mission, and to be honest, I wrote the mission to be fairly, how do you say, straightforward. You know, there's not going to be a lot of possible suspects, but there are a couple. The party's focused narrowly on one of them right now and is going to test out their theories. Great position to be in. Aside from that little awkward part in the middle where they were a little bit lost for a while, the party's been going smoothly. They dealt with the ambush very well, even though they got badly injured. They dealt with the mountain lions pretty well. They've sort of made an enemy out of this Drake Silverhorn guy, Kel Silverhorn. He's definitely suspicious as fuck. I mean, Valdur here drew a sword on him, for Christ's sake. And I mean, put it away. Technically, he could arrest and imprison Valdur for even drawing a sword on him, but we're not going to enforce that right now, and he doesn't want to make any problems. He just wants to get home and out of the heat. So, yeah. So that's going to be it for our director's commentary. I always intend on doing these, and then I never do, but now that we've got some room in our schedule, maybe we'll get to do some more. I doubt we'll do one per episode, but maybe every other episode, maybe every 5 episodes, I don't know. It'll be fun to do some director's commentary. We went through the whole thing Sunday. It's been a 2.5-hour stream, plus an hour and a half yesterday. I will cut these into VODs and put them up on YouTube as well. So, that's it for director's commentary. I guess I'm done rambling at you, and I will see you all maybe tomorrow for shenanigans. If you like silly D&D with ridiculous people and ridiculous characters that go all over the place, or I'll see you on Sunday for our chit chat, because we're gonna do chit chat on Sunday. Chit chat is our new show. It's basically just the pre-show for all of our other campaigns. You know, like the Hardcore Heroes or the Homeward Bound or the Fro pre-show. And it's only the pre-show. That's why we're calling it Chit Chat. And that'll be on Monday. Tuesday, we've got Starfinder Dead Sons. And next Thursday, we'll have Of Dice and Men. So, I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.